Hi there. I started on this and then I realized I should probably make a video because I've wanted to do that and I keep forgetting. Okay, so I wanted to make a stamp. I'm going to do a fabric stamp. So I have some lino here, linoleum lino stuff. I used to use this all the time in college when I made lots of block printing. I actually think that this is probably the last of my college stuff from almost 20 years ago. So I bought it by a huge sheet and I'm gonna have to get some more here soon. I did get it when I taught school and I taught block printing for school. I did get it from the art supply place called Dick Blick. You can get them actually in various sizes already pre-cut. I had a sheet that was a good 20 by 24 sheet when I originally bought it, and I just keep whittling away at it, one project at a time. So that's the material, and this little square that I've cut out is actually the shape of my current stamp. And I'm going to eventually stamp it onto this silk taffeta. So I wanted to use my eagle image, and I'm gonna see if it will let me, like, there, can you see that? I think you can see that. See? See? So I have my tracing paper and my image, and I'm gonna finish tracing it while I have you on video so you can see the process. I meant to do this a little bit more formally with cut and paste and all that other stuff, but I still can't figure out how to use the editing on my computer, so we are just going to do all of it together. Now, if you can see, I'm pressing to make sure that my image doesn't shift, and I'm also being really careful that I'm not creating bumps in the image. Because if you have bumps in your paper, your image will be off center. This is the original image from my original submission on my device. So it has all the imperfections, which I actually kind of like. I am not a perfectionist in my art, much to some people's disagreement, but I really am not. I enjoy the making of things, not the perfectionism of things. So there's my image, my tracing paper, and you can see it's fairly faint. So now that I've done this, I kind of want to show you my board. So this is my board, and it's got plaster on it because I cut some plaster a couple years ago. But see how the board has two opposite ends? And this is scrap. It's scrap material. And the reason, so I take this end and it leans up against the side of the table. And then I'll put my block print up here at the top. I'll have to move the video so you can see here in a minute. But it's really faint, so I want to make sure that I draw it in with Sharpie. And I have a really fat Sharpie, so I have to be really careful with my image. So I don't really want big fat lines. I kind of want fine tip lines, but I can't find my fine tip marker, so this will do. And if you need to refer back to your image, you can, obviously. So the reason it's okay to draw on this with Sharpie, I get this question occasionally, is because you're going to carve it mostly off anyway, and the Sharpie is not going to affect your outcome, unless of course you don't follow the lines. But the Sharpie has very little to do with the actual outcome of the project, except to give you lines, clear lines, to carve from. And a Sharpie is a great tool to make sure you can see all of your lines and know where you're gonna go. Okay, so there's my eagle. Okay, now, if you've done pewter casting, then I'm sure you probably understand the method of, so I want my eagle to be what is stamped. So I want that to be black. I don't want all this background, okay? So I'm gonna cut out the background. I'm also gonna cut out portions of my eagle so that I can give it a feathering image, so that when it's not just solid black, it actually has some texture to it. So I'll be doing that. Now I'll be using some tools. I should probably show you my tools. Now I have, these are my favorite. So there's this blade. It's a V blade. I don't know if you can see it. Hoping it'll show up. So there's a V blade. I should probably tilt it back up again. Maybe that'll help. So a V blade. It's having a hard time focusing, isn't it? So there's that one. And then there's a tinier one. And then you have a scoop, which is really big. And then you have an itty bitty tiny V. It's really, really tiny. It's very, very fine. So those are kind of the things. These are speedball carvers. They have a really cool thing where you can put all the blades in the lid, and you can carry it around and your blades don't get dull. I actually have 2 sets, or did have 2 sets. Oh, there they are. So I have 2 sets of blades because I have 2. Oh, here's also a square gouge. And then here's a fine line cutter. I obviously don't use those 2 very often. Now I have a big box here, and this has some wood carving tools, and occasionally I will use some of the tools from the wood carving. This one I've used before. It's a shallow scoop. It gives me a little bit of control. So what I like to start with generally is I start with the fine, or the big scoop, and then I'll trace my outline. So I'm going to try to move this where you can see it a little bit better. I have like 5 million projects going here. So let's see if it will. Well, I don't know how to make this work. Give me a second here. There we go. That'll be a little bit better. I won't be able to do this for very long, but I'll at least be able to give you a start. So this block keeps your lino from sliding on you. It's really kind of an essential piece of your safety equipment. Okay, so I usually start with the outside because I really want it to be as completely carved down as possible. And these blades are really sharp, and so I want to make sure that I am always carving away from myself. There's really no way to guarantee you're not going to cut yourself unless you're cutting away from yourself. Now, I've taught this class to teenagers in junior high on how to do lino cut. Always, always, always cut away from yourself. So I have these really nice fine lines around the feathers. You do not want this lino tool to cut your hand. Having done it a few times in my enthusiasm, I can guarantee you it doesn't feel good. And I want to really cut deep because I want that entire background to be gone. I think every carver kind of gets their own rhythm as to how to get their fine lines and how to get their thicker and deeper lines. You notice I'm always angling away from myself. Do not cut yourself. So I'm slowly, I use the fine one and then I kind of go back with this bigger tool. I actually should probably go down a size. I'm going to use my medium gouge here. Now this is a down and dirty lino cut lesson. This is not like if you're going to do block printing for invitations or scrolls or something. That's a little bit more complex. Quite a bit more complex, especially the printing process. But how fine you do your lines also is kind of dependent on what kind of ink you're going to use and what block printing roller set you have and what kind of paper you're going to use. So there's a lot to it. I know that I'm going to put this on fabric. I also know the paint I'm going to use and what the consistency of the paint is. So I know that my background has to practically disappear or this is not going to work. I'm going to try to find my, I had another one I could show you. Give me a second. So this one's one I made a while ago. See how tiny it is? So this whole big square, my device fits inside that. And originally I thought I would use this for the silk, but then I decided not to. And this is a big one that I did recently. See how huge those lines are? Huge, well-defined lines, but the background is cut away pretty good, so it doesn't show up when I do a block print. So that is really the nitty-gritty of this. So I'm going to keep carving on this, and then when I get done, I'll post a picture on Eagle and Roost so you can see what it looks when it's finished.